Welcome, everyone. Thank you for your participation in this webinar that coincides with our preparation for the Cancer full moon period. We stand within the first day of preparation, and then the full moon itself is occurring on Tuesday. So we're well within the full tide of this energy, and it's always a great opportunity to have the opportunity to work together with you. Here we see a small child's drawing, because in many ways cancer is related to children. And we have perhaps a tendency to not include children in our thinking and in our work at the time of the full moon. But perhaps we should, because children have souls, and on a soul level, all of us are working and cooperating because the soul knows no age. And so many, as you know, many of the children that are coming into incarnation now are indeed old souls and are showing an interest in esotericism from very young ages. And so perhaps during this sign of the mother, we can bring those children into our conscious recognition. So let's begin, as we always do, with a moment of silence, followed by the sounding of a mantra. Let's link up with each other and with all other individuals and groups throughout the world who are cooperating with us at this time of the full moon opportunity. I stand a point of peace, and through the point that I can thus provide, love and true light can flow. I stand in restful poise, and through that poise I can attract the gifts that I can give: an understanding heart, a quiet mind, myself. I never am alone, for round me gather those I seek to serve. My brothers in the ashram, souls that demand my help, even though I see them not, and those in distant places who seek the master of my life, my brother, the Tibetan. The third stanza of this mantra, which was given out to one of the disciples in the Tibetan groups that were recorded in the 2 volumes of Discipleship in the New Age. This third stanza, I think, relates very much to some of the themes that are important in this sign of Cancer, which is related to ashramic work. Because as we mentioned last time, Cancer is a sign that the esoteric group of astrologers have noted is related to the ashram, to the inner group, um, which the Masters of the Wisdom have formed. Um, and this final stanza speaks to us in that regard. I never am alone, for around me gather those I seek to serve. Those people who are affiliated with an ashram, they might be on what's called the periphery, not fully within the center group of servers, but on the periphery. Perhaps we can honestly say that we take our stand, um, specifically at the times of the full moon and new moon, when we're told that the ashrams are in meditation deep. Um, so we're cooperating with them as the door stands open and the veils, which normally block our ability to penetrate into the ashram, thin. And we're told by the Tibetan that the Masters of the Wisdom do make themselves available as we work in group formation to form that bridge in consciousness whereby we can lift ourselves out of our normal preoccupations and concerns into a higher vibratory field wherein we can enter into these inner realms. So here's an interesting quote on the ashrams. The true ashram, of which the coming outer ashrams will be but reflections, is not for lower concrete mind discussion. It is a focal point of receptivity. It is not a place, however, for long and silent meditation processes, for it is a point of tension, where together the ageless wisdom in its more esoteric aspects is discussed, where the nature of soul relationship is recognized, and where the fusion of auras and the interblending of the triangles goes forward consciously. An ashram is a state of mind of a spiritual group. So we receive teaching from these ashrams on the level of our soul. And so while we are active in the outer world on another level, as we attune ourselves to this higher vibratory rate, we can be learning at all times. Particularly, it's said that when we pass over at night, we are taking classes. We're also working in other capacities, undertaking well established lines of service. But therefore, to the extent that we begin to synchronize ourselves in our daily outer world with our soul, to that extent can we become receptive to this teaching that is going on at all times. So, in that regard, just as a visualization, the Tibetan tells us, great is the power of creative visualization. Let's open this meeting with a brief visualization, a stimulation or a simulation, I should say, of entering into what I call the astrological ashram, because much of our work at the full moon time is related to attempting to come to a deeper understanding of the qualities of the 12 signs of the zodiac. So much of this teaching stems from the ashram or ashrams that are hold as part of their work the teaching of esoteric astrology. So again, let's link up with our group, which is an inner and outer group. Let's silently sound the Om 3 times, purifying the physical etheric body, the astral body, and the mental body. See the group standing outside a door, above which there is a sign that reads, "Speak low, and only if a need be there." See the door slowly opening, revealing a long hallway leading to the ashram. See the group walking slowly up the hallway. Entering a room full of peace and calm, of books and charts and enterprise. At the desk, the teacher sits and works and thinks, projecting thought, working within, above, and all around, while through the room pass many. It is their right to pass. Hold the mind sensitive to this impression. Now see the leader of the group with his hands outstretched, making a symbolic offering to the teacher, an offering that symbolizes a group project or some work that contributes to the ashram. This is the group's contribution to the unfolding plan. What is this offering? Now see the teacher rising from his chair and turning around to look out the window facing towards the east. See the group gathering behind him. Through the window, pour out the energy of light and love to the waiting and receptive world. See it blending with the light already pulsating within humanity. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into human minds. Let light descend on earth from the point of love within the heart of God. Let love stream forth into human hearts. May the coming one return to earth from the center where the will of God is known. Let purpose guide all little human wills, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center which we call the human race, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. Thank you. It said that disciples are assembling now at the call of hierarchy. We're hearing that call. We might liken it to the voice of the silence, that voice that comes to us in our intuitive moments. All of these themes are related to this very subtle energy of Cancer. So we as a group, and in relationship to all of the other groups of which we may be a part, can play our part as outposts of that call of hierarchy. We can stand and use our vehicles for the purpose for which they were given to us, which is as to be as transmitters of the light and love, which is so readily abundant at this time if we have the ears to hear. So at these full moon periods in particular, let's use all opportunities that come to us to respond to that call, and to reach out into our environment in whatever way seems appropriate to us, in order to stand in spiritual being and distribute that light within our environment. This sign of Cancer and all of the 4 signs of the cardinal cross, Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn, we're told by the Tibetan are difficult and perhaps impossible for us to truly understand the full meaning of them, because they form part of what's called the cardinal cross. And here's the symbol of that cross, which the Tibetan has given us. It is the cross of the higher initiations. The Tibetan tells us that we don't begin to mount that cross until after the taking of the 3rd initiation and just prior to the taking of the 4th initiation. So it's well beyond our capacity to fully understand. But as with so many aspects of the teaching, the Tibetan constantly gives us information about levels of consciousness that extend way beyond our present capabilities. But it is his belief, therefore, that we, as a group and at high points in our path, can catch glimpses of understanding of what such things as the cardinal cross might mean. It is certainly a cross of, I guess we could say, when we've passed through the challenges of discipleship, then we can mount this cross. Um, the teaching on the crosses is very distinct in esoteric astrology and differs quite a bit from the teaching in traditional astrology. One of the real gifts of the Tibetan is to relate esoteric astrology very much to this whole theme of evolutionary development. And he states, therefore, that in order to interpret any horoscope, we have to understand and spend some time trying to ponder what level of evolutionary development our particular client might be functioning under. And so this is related to this theme of the different crosses. The crosses really relate in the Tibetan's view, to stages of consciousness. We can be born in any sign, but yet on another level in consciousness, we find ourselves on a particular cross that's related to where we are. So it certainly is not meant to state that anyone who's born in the cardinal cross is preparing to take the fourth initiation or beyond. This is not the teaching. The teaching simply states that the mass of humanity still finds itself on the mutable cross, the cross of many changes, known as the cross of the hidden Christ. The disciples of the world find themselves decidedly on the cross known as the fixed cross, the cross of the crucified Christ. And those who have passed beyond those stages of struggle and strife and personality soul fusion then find themselves liberated and on the cross of the cardinal cross, the cross of the risen Christ. And I just wanted to read these three passages, which are taken from the end of Esoteric Astrology in the chapter on the crosses. Gives you an insight into the majesty of this cross. It's the cross of initiation and beginnings. It concerns fundamentally the beginning of the endless way of revelation, which starts when nirvana is entered, and for which all the previous stages of the path of evolution have been but preparatory. So it really starts at nirvana, and some say that nirvana is akin to the sixth initiation, when the masters must choose one of seven paths. And so we really see from this statement that this cross really comes into full play at that initiation, perhaps. This is a beautiful passage. It is the cross of the widespread arms, the open heart, and the higher mind. For those who lie upon this cross know and enjoy the significances underlying the words omnipresence and omniscience, and are in process of unfolding the higher phases of being, which we inadequately cover by the word omnipotence. And we'll see in a little while, if I get to it, that this phrase, widespread arms and open heart and higher mind, relate to the higher aspects of this sign, Cancer. And then he says the energies of the cardinal cross blend with the energies to which we can give no greater name than cosmic energy, even though that word is meaningless. They carry the quality of the one about whom naught may be said, and are tinctured with the light of the 7 solar systems, of which our solar system is one. So perhaps at this times when the sun finds itself in one of the signs of the cardinal cross, it's really a time of impact for hierarchy and Shambhala, the 2 higher planetary centers, rather than for humanity. But to the extent that we form part of that great serving group of world servers, perhaps at these cardinal cross moments, we can stand simply as vehicles whereby these higher potencies can pour forth. And in this sign of the mass consciousness, we know that each year this is a great time for distributing the energies which we've received during the preceding 3 signs of Aries, Taurus, and Gemini, the signs of the higher interlude of the spiritual year. We now enter into this cycle in the breath known as the time of out-breathing. So I like to think of it as a time when the outpouring of the energies contacted can be shed abroad into the masses of humanity, stimulating the opening of their hearts, which is possible for so many people in our world today. Our world is full of men and women of goodwill, and this sign can stimulate them. Many of you are very familiar with the book Alice Bailey and the Tibetan wrote together called The Labors of Hercules. And I revisited that book in preparation for this meeting to review one of my favorite labors, the labor 4, coincides with the 4th sign of the zodiac, the capture of the doe or hind. And when Hercules' teacher was presenting himself to the great presiding one, he said that his disciple was ready for this next labor. And the great presiding one said, "Provide a test which will evoke his wisest choice. Send him to labor in a field wherein he must decide which voice, of all the many voices, will arouse the obedience of his heart. Provide likewise a test of great simplicity upon the outer plane, and yet a test which will awaken on the inner side of life the fullness of his wisdom and the rightness of his power to choose. Let him proceed with the 4th test." We might think when we read this, if we didn't know what sign it was related to, we might consider it a phrase related very much to Libra and the sign wherein we must make our choice. But here perhaps the Tibetan is indicating the real relationship between those 2 signs, and that the testing in Cancer prepares us for the decisions in that great sign of Libra. So as we study this sign and this labor, we see some themes emerge. Some of the challenges and the lessons of this sign are related to silence and listening, to distraction and deception, to conflicting voices, and detachment and sacrifice, and the capturing of that which is fleeting. This labor is related to the young fawn, the beautiful fawn that Hercules was told by his teacher that he must capture. But every time he looked at the fawn, it jumped and moved. And there were some challenges, and we're told that it took Hercules a lot of time. In the labor it says 1 year, but this could be symbolic of an entire life cycle, um, to really fulfill the labor. So while it was simple on one level, we're told it took him a long time to get it. Um, he had to cultivate the ability to go within, to listen to his intuition, because it is a sign of intuition, and the fawn is the symbol of the intuition, that which flits in and out of our conscious awareness and is difficult to capture, um, because of the many distractions and deceptions. Hercules was confronted with Artemis, the goddess of the moon, and also Diana, daughter of the sun, who is the hunter. These two women, who were very beautiful goddesses, very beautiful. The Tibetan describes them as uh, attempting very much to claim this intuitive power as their own, because on all levels of consciousness, Artemis symbolizing, we're told, the um, instinctual awareness, which we know is at times intuitive. Native peoples throughout the world um, have maintained that instinctual awareness and are open sometimes to levels of awareness that are shut to the intellectuals of the world. And then there is the intellect. We move in this sign from instinct to intellect to intuition. The instinctual level is related to the moon, and to Artemis. The goddess Diana is related to intellect. And we find so much of our world is trapped in intellect. The mind has slain the real in the case of so many people today. And so this sign is a warning to us to move beyond intellect and into intuition. And this is a couple quotes related to that from Blavatsky's translation of The Voice of the Silence. She says, "Flee from the hall of learning. This hall is dangerous in its perfidious beauty. It's needed but for thy probation." When we're on the probationary path, there is a need to learn. But beware, Lanu, lest dazzled by elusive radiance, thy soul should linger and be caught in its deceptive light. The third hall is wisdom, beyond which stretch the shoreless waters of Akshara, the indestructible fount of omniscience. It is the hall which lies beyond, wherein all shadows are known, and where the light of truth shines with unfading glory. This hall of wisdom is that which Hercules sees beyond the gate through which he must pass as he enters upon this labor. And the Tibetan describes it as a golden temple in the distant horizon, and he's told that he must capture the fawn and bring it to this distant temple. And we're told that when he moves through the gate, he lets go of all the possessions which he has garnered throughout time. And so it seems a real symbol there of the higher initiation, the third initiation, perhaps even leading to the fourth initiation, wherein all things are left behind and we enter freely through the gate. We leave behind the stage of the rich young man. And so I think Alice Bailey, in her commentary on this sign, does somewhat of a disservice. I don't like to say that, but I felt that when I was reading it, when she somewhat simplified her understanding of the sign Cancer, relating it simply to emotional response and the need to gain a grip on the emotional body, which is certainly very true of many individuals who are heavily influenced by this sign. But on a higher level, it is a sign of very great attainment which is conferred by that ability to bridge between the astral body and the Buddhic plane. So it's very much a sign of Buddhic awareness. I'm sorry I'm taking so much time here, but the end result of the overcoming of the obstacles of this sign is the intuitive response that is given to us, the ability to work with the intuition. And so I wanted to just read a quote that I mentioned in the interview I did a few weeks ago with Steve Nation. This was a quote of a powerful intuitive experience undergone by the great initiate, the Tibetan calls him, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, a man from Geneva, Switzerland, who spent most of his life in Paris. And during the summer of 1749, Rousseau, who was a great writer and thinker, made several 10-mile round trip walks between Paris and Vincennes to visit Denis Diderot, who was in jail. Diderot was another controversial thinker and writer. During one of those walks, he had a mystical experience. He said, "All at once I felt myself dazzled by 1,000 sparkling lights. Crowds of vivid ideas thronged into my mind with a force and confusion that threw me into unspeakable agitation. I felt my head whirling in a giddiness like that of intoxication. A violent palpitation oppressed me. Unable to walk for difficulty in breathing, I sank down under one of the trees by the road and passed half an hour there in such a condition of excitement that I rose and saw that the front of my waistcoat was thick with tears. Ah, if ever I could have written a quarter of what I saw and felt under that tree, with what clarity I should have brought out all the contradictions of our social system. With what simplicity I should have demonstrated that man is by nature good, and that only his institutions have made him bad." Rousseau went on to become one of the great inspirations for the French and American revolutions and spent a life dedicated to his writing. So he was also born in the sign of Cancer and coincidentally died in that sign. So Cancer, I feel, is a sign of great intuitive perception, and this is demonstrated by the life of Jean-Jacques Rousseau. So now perhaps we should move on. But just one final quote to state that, as we know, the moon and Neptune rule this sign, and the Tibetan tells us here that it is Neptune, the unveiled Neptune, which confers such a great deal of sensitivity to this sign. And he says in this first quote that it's fortunate for the masses of humanity that Neptune is veiled by the moon. But then in relation to the disciples of the world, he says, upon the path of discipleship and along the line of esoteric development, one of the major difficulties and great problems of the disciple is his extreme sensitivity to impacts from every side and his rapid ability to respond to contexts coming from all points of the compass, from every angle of the zodiacal wheel, and from that which is within as well as from that which is without, from that which lies above, below, and upon every hand, as the old commentary expresses it. So perhaps disciples born in these signs of the cardinal cross can cultivate this extreme sensitivity, which can open them up perhaps to some semblance of receptivity to the great cardinal cross. So now let's begin our meditation, working as we are within the full tide of this inpouring energy of Cancer. I chose as our meditation a meditation which was again given to one of the disciples in the Tibetans group, a disciple who needed to cultivate the inner listening. He said as a preface, "You will note, my brother, how I emphasize for you the need to listen. That must be the keynote of your inner life for the remainder of this incarnation. Within the circle of those who talk, there is no group integration. Right of access comes to those who know the law of silence." He said this exercise will deepen your life, increase your capacity to serve, make pregnant every word you speak to those you teach, and bring you to a point of group usefulness this lifetime and next. Picture to yourself a wood of pine trees, a purling brook, a winding mounting path, and at the end a low-built bungalow of undressed wood in which I, the Tibetan, live. With you are walking your group brothers, and all of you are talking on the way. You stand before the door, the outer door. Link now with your group brothers here and throughout the world. Lift your consciousness as high as possible. Pass inside the door and hear a voice which says, "You stand within the circle of those who talk, and talking cannot hear the Master's voice. Stand there, listen, reflect, and cease from speech." Picture a curtain hanging across the space near to the place where you stand. Imagine yourself achieving, with effort, that complete silence, which will enable you to hear another voice. Move forward into the circle of those who know the law of silence. You can now hear my voice. Then imagine yourself obeying the summons and passing beyond the partitioning curtain into the central room within the Tibetan's place of retreat. There sit in quietude and contemplative reflection and listen. imaginatively standing before your teacher and aware of his presence. Dedicate yourself to the service of the ashram for this life and the next. May the holy ones, whose pupils we aspire to become, show us the light we seek. Give us the strong aid of their compassion and their wisdom. There is a peace which passeth understanding. It abides in the hearts of those who dwell in the eternal. There is a power which maketh all things new. It lives and moves in those who know the Self as one. May that peace brood over us, that power uplift us, till we stand where the one initiator is invoked, until we see his star shine forth. After a minute of silence, if anyone has a thought or an impression that they'd like to share with the group, please do so. Does anyone have any impressions they'd like to share? Okay. Thank you all very much for your participation, and I look forward to working with you again. Goodbye.